worship, and that got a little interrupted with a riot, and tries to make his defense on the steps of the castle, and doesn't get to finish his talk because he mentions the word Gentiles, and they go berserk, and he's threatened with being whipped until he talks, and he politely informs them he's a Roman, and so they desist with that plan. And so the captain, trying to figure out what has this guy done that these people want to tear him limb from limb, takes him down to the council the next day and see if he can get some straight answers. Doesn't go real well. By the end of it, he is again afraid that these, and this is not just a mob, this is the religious elite, are about ready to tear him asunder. And so he pulls them out and takes them back to the castle. And then the next night is when the Lord's going to appear to Paul and tell him, don't be afraid, be of good cheer. Just like you've testified here, I'm going to send you to Rome. So they ain't going to kill you. Which is really good news to have, because the next day is when 40 guys decide, hey, we're going to have a pact. This guy needs to die, and we are so serious about it, we're not going to eat or drink until it happens. And the Lord arranges for Paul's nephew to overhear that plot, and he is able to tell Paul and then tell the captain of the guard, and the captain believes him and arranges for a hasty withdrawal from the city, because those men's plan had been have the religious leaders ask for Paul to be delivered back to the council so they could talk to him again the next day, and we'll get him on the way. And so the young man told the captain, he says, don't give in to him. They're going to kill him. And so that night, he arranges for an escort of nearly 500 soldiers to get Paul out of the city, and the bulk of them travel a good halfway between Jerusalem and the port city of Caesarea, which is where the governor is abiding at this time. And then the next day, a smaller contingent on horseback, 70-something guys, finish delivering Paul to the governor. And the governor at this time is named, what? Felix. Claudius would have been an emperor. Recap in 23.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. So they got to Caesarea, and the captain of the guard sent a letter with Paul, and it was a very self-serving letter, trying to frame it as that he had known Paul was a Roman citizen, and he was rescuing him from this mob, and couldn't figure out what was wrong with why they wanted to kill him. And then when he discovered this plot, he's sending them down, you, governor, for his protection. Tag, you're it. Hope you have fun. Be well. So the governor asks him, briefly, what province are you from? And he tells him he's from Cilicia, which is the region around the city of Tarsus where he was born. And so apparently that's under that governor's jurisdiction. He says, okay, I'll hear you, but not until your accusers, these religious leaders, come down. And so he is kept there in King Herod's judgment hall. All right. So 5 days later, after he's arrived, that's where we pick up in chapter 24. Ananias, as the high priest, descended with the elders. Why does it talk about descending? Came down. Jerusalem's up in the mountains. Caesarea is on sea level. They're coming downhill. He descended down with the elders and with a certain orator named Tertullus. What's an orator? Someone whose job is to talk. Right? He was known to be an eloquent speaker. Right? He was going to be basically their attorney. All right? The spokesman who was going to accuse or inform the governor against Paul. When he was called forth, Tertullus began to accuse him, saying, and then Luke basically records his introductory remarks, which are just over the top. He starts by, I can't think of a polite way to describe this, kissing up to the governor and just trying to sweet talk him. Maybe that's a politer expression. Seeing that by thee we enjoy great quietness, and that very worthy deeds are done unto this nation by thy providence. So, by your efforts, we live in peace, and you've done so many wonderful works for our whole nation. You were a great guy, and we remember this. We accept it always, and in all places, most noble Felix, with all thankfulness. We are so glad that you are a Roman overlord military leader who has the charge over us as a subjective people. We're so happy. You're the best, right? Everywhere, throughout the whole nation, we are thankful for you, all right? That's how you always start, by complimenting the judge, right? Notwithstanding that I be not further tedious unto thee, I pray that thou wouldest hear of us, of thy clemency, a few words. We don't want to belabor the point, which is exactly what he's about to do, is belabor the point. We want to hear just in a few words, so that you can help us once again. For we have found this man. You can imagine the gesture that goes with this. This man, a pestilent fellow, a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes, who also hath gone about to profane the temple, whom we took and would have judged according to our law. All right, so what do you think it means to be a pestilent fellow? He is a troublemaker. That's right. And this is a more eloquent version of Barney here. Trouble, you got nip it. All right. Pestilent fellow. A mover of sedition. What's a mover of sedition? He is one who is causing uprisings, right? Do Romans like uprisings? No, right? Treason, rebellion, plots, those are all really bad. If you're the governor of a Roman province, you want quiet, calm, your subjects in subjection. He's a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world. This guy's not just a local problem, he's an international problem all over the Roman Empire. And a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. What's the sect of the Nazarenes? A group of Christians, right? It's a shorthand for Jesus the Nazarene. So these are followers of Christ. He's a ringleader. So does a ringleader have a real positive term? No. Yeah, it's, like a spy master or something. Ringleader. He's a mover and shaker among this whole faction of people that's going throughout the Roman Empire. All right, so these are some pretty serious charges. Trouble. Who also hath gone about to profane the temple, whom we took and would have judged according to our law. He said, we were handling it. All right? We didn't have to bother anybody else. We were going to deal with it ourselves by our law. But the chief captain, Lysias, came upon us, and with great violence took him away out of our hands, commanding his accusers to come unto thee, by examining of whom thyself mayest take knowledge of all these things whereof we accuse him. So, how's that stand with the letter that Lysias sent? That's the exact opposite, right? He was throwing them under the bus, and they're throwing him under the bus. And that we were handling it, and your Roman guy came in and just whooped up on us, great violence, and snatched him away. Right? He took him out of the hands of justice, so to speak, and then commanded his accusers to come to thee. Now they're leaving out a part there, right, where chief captain had brought them down to the council right there, and there had been a plot to kill him. We're just going to whitewash over that. We're going to just skip the part where we had to be inconvenienced because of your Roman captain. We've had to come 70-something miles down here to the sea to deal with this pestilent fellow. Right? Commanding his accusers to come unto thee, by examining of whom thyself mayest take knowledge of all these things whereof we accuse him. And the Jews also assented, saying these things were so. And so all the other council there, he was the ringleader, they kind of do that. Yep, that's right. Yep, what he said is certainly true. The council and the elders all came. Yeah. That's what it says. The high priest descended with the elders. Who all was considered in the elders? I don't know if it was everybody, but there was a large enough committee. And then they had the spokesperson, the professional speaker. So then it's Paul's chance, right? Paul, after the governor had beckoned unto him to speak, right? Roman law, the accused gets to have his say. He answered, forasmuch as I know that thou hast been many years a judge unto this nation, I do the more cheerfully answer for myself. So we've learned a little bit about Felix at this point. He's not a new guy to Israel. He knows about this nation. He knows about their customs. And Paul's, I'm encouraged that he has some background with which to hear this case. Because that thou mayest understand that there are yet but 12 days since I went up to Jerusalem for to worship. So it's only been 12 days since all this went down. So you've been keeping up with the play-by-play. Been waiting 5 days there at Caesarea.
5 days.
Yeah. Yep. So the 12 gets you all that way back to when he was calm and quiet, worshiping in the temple. And then the guys from Asia said, here he is. He's the one that's teaching everybody to abandon the law, and he brought a Gentile in. So less than 2 weeks ago. So he goes back to the beginning. 12 days ago, sets the stage. They neither found me in the temple disputing with any man, nor raising up the people, neither in the synagogues, nor in the city. Neither can they prove the things whereof they now accuse me, right? They accused him of being a raiser of seditions, riots and rebellions, and profaning the temple. He's like, I was there in town. I haven't done anything. The chief captain confused him with that. When he started speaking Greek, he said, whoa, aren't you that Egyptian who recently read all those murderers out in the wilderness? He says, no, I'm a Jew from Tarsus. Grew up in the city. So nothing of what he's been doing in Jerusalem comes close to what they've just accused him of. They can't prove it. But this I confess unto thee, that after the way which they call heresy, so worship I the God of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law and the prophets. So the only thing that he's agreeing with them is that he's a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. He said, yeah, they may call it heresy, but yes, that is how I worship the God of my fathers being of the Jews. And what am I doing that's so wrong? I'm believing that what was written in the law and the prophets is true. Believing all things which are written in the law and in the prophets. And have hope towards God, which they themselves also allow, that there shall be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and the unjust. So they that must be there must be Pharisees, because the Sadducees didn't allow that. So I believe the law. That's how I worship. I believe all that's written in the law and the prophets, namely, not get into detail here, but that the Christ would come and that he has come, and believe that there's the resurrection from the dead, both the just and the unjust. And herein do I exercise myself, to have always conscience void of offense toward God and toward man. So he's like, this is how I'm operating. I'm trying to live consistently with that in good conscience. Says, now after many years, I came to bring alms to my nation and offering. So he's bringing some form of donation, and then also the offerings, which he was connected with those guys who were performing their vows. I think he's paying part of the cost of that. And while he's there, worshiping, whereupon certain Jews from Asia found me purified in the temple, neither with multitude nor with tumult. Right? They didn't find me in the middle of a ring of people trying to raise people up or cause issue. He was there, calm and quiet. Who ought to have been before thee, and object if they have aught else against me. He said, they didn't bring down the guys who saw me in the temple, these Jews of Asia who accused me of things. They should have been here and object if they have anything else that they could say against me. Or else let these same here, the elders, say if they have found any evil doing in me while I stood before the council. The first time he saw most of these guys had been 6 or 7 days ago when he appeared at them before the council. He said, let them testify to what they can testify as first-hand witnesses. That would only be at the council. Let them say something then. Except it be for this one voice that I cried standing among them, touching the resurrection of the dead, am I called in question by you this day. He says, that's the only thing they can accuse me with, is that he believes in the resurrection of the dead. And that was when the tumult in the council got so heated, because the Pharisees said, he didn't do anything wrong. He's one of us. And the Sadducees, did not like that. They were about to tear him apart. When Felix heard these things, so that's all he says. I mean, he agrees that the thing that I've done wrong is I believed the law and the prophets are true. I believe in the resurrection of the dead, and I stand in that hope, and I live consistently with it. Now, when Felix heard these things, having more perfect knowledge of that way, he deferred them. He put them off. All right? Having more perfect knowledge of that way, he knew somewhat, I don't know how much, of what the sect of the Nazarene was or was about. I've heard of the Christ. Again, I don't know his knowledge base. But he had heard enough that he wanted to have his officer, who has been slandered by Tortellus at this point, come down. When Lysias the chief captain shall come down, I will know the uttermost of your matter. So he put him off. And he commanded a centurion to keep Paul and to let him have liberty, and that he should forbid none of his acquaintance to minister or to come unto him. So he was under guard, but this was not like maximum security prison. This probably wasn't even like really serious jail. This was, you have to stay here. We're going to go through with this. This Roman, is in charge of making sure you stay around, but you can have visitors coming and going and have some freedom of movement. I don't know how far, but some form of liberty. What he's been accused of, by any Roman standard, wouldn't merit being put in jail at all. Right? He hasn't killed anybody. He hasn't stolen anything. Basically, as Paul's framed it, what he's done is that he's believed that how they worship is true. And the things that the elders have accused him of, they don't have any firsthand witnesses to any of these things. It's all just way far removed hearsay. All right? So they got a pretty thin case. So, after certain days, how long? I don't know, certain days. Period of time. When Felix came with his wife, Drusilla, which was a Jewess. Now, why do we think Felix has a little bit more information about the nation of Israel? His wife is a Jew. So he would have a lot of, opportunities to learn about the idiosyncrasies and the culture and the law and about Christians. Right? I'm sure that would have been a popular conversation, whether you agreed with it or not, among the Israelites as it continued to grow. So he sent for Paul and heard him concerning the faith. Right? So this is not a trial. This is really he and his wife wanted to talk to him and heard about it concerning the faith. Well, he is telling him the gospel. He's telling him, he'd heard something about this way, and so now he's getting it, straight from an apostle's mouth. And as he reasoned of righteousness, temperance, and judgment to come, Felix trembled. Right? There was some kind of visceral reaction in Felix as Paul is reasoning of righteousness, temperance or self-control, and the judgment to come. Right? We talked about the resurrection of the dead, the just and the unjust, and the judgment that comes with that, and where does righteousness come from, and all this of the grace of Jesus Christ. This is all in shorthand. Luke isn't telling you what he said. He's telling you the way highlights. But Felix's physical response is that he was trembling. There was some fear. And he says, "Go thy way for this time. When I have a convenient season, I will call for thee." So he puts him off and just kind of leaves it as an open-ended, we'll talk sometime later. And then Luke really tells you what his motivation was. He hoped also that money should be given unto him of Paul, that he might loose him. Wherefore he sent for him oftener and communed with him. So he continued to have these dialogues over and over and over again, and they're talking, and he's hearing more about the gospel. But part of his motivation was he wanted to get paid. Right? If somebody would just grease his palm, I'd let this guy go. But, you don't do nothing for nothing as a politician. So he's waiting. He wound up waiting for 2 years. So Paul wound up hanging out in jail in the port city of Caesarea for 2 whole years until Felix's time as governor ended. And you get a new governor whose name is Porcius Festus. And Felix, willing to show the Jews a pleasure, left Paul bound. All right? So even though his tenure was up as governor, just out of kindness, so to speak, to the Jews, he did not release him as he was going out the door. He just left him in jail and under arrest. I don't know why the captain never came down or why anything went forward, but it kind of fell into that black hole of bureaucracy where he's just hanging out.
So this was not mentioned after that. This was not the captain. He was not mentioned after that, was he?
No, he's not. And Jesus had told Paul, "You're going to Rome," and so he just had a long layover.
Kind of like Pharaoh and board, right?
Pharaoh and
It's kind of like free room and board like that. Yeah.
well, I don't know if it was free room and board because when he got to Rome, he had to pay for it. He had to hire his own house.
I didn't realize.
Yeah. So, there in that last verse, you have a big passage of time. So if you like to draw little clocks in the Bible like I do, you got a 2-year passage. Short chapter. Yeah, right. And 2 years covered.
Now, in 25, when it says, when Festus was coming to the province after 3 days, is that talking about after 2 years, 3 days, or 3 days after when it first comes to town?
When Festus was coming into the province, I think that is talking about the changing of the guard, which is what you've got in 27. You've got the changeover. After 3 days of being there in Caesarea, as he's now a governor, he goes up to Jerusalem for the first time. So he goes up to the capital city. And that's where he's first going to hear about this prisoner that he has no idea about. Right? He's just come in, and that's not high on his radar. There's a lot of very important issues to deal with, and one random guy wouldn't have been noted, except for, obviously, it's still very important to the high priests.
High priest, they didn't hang around for 2 years. They went back to Jerusalem.
Yeah, no, after that, that one scene, they would have gone home, and yeah, they probably would have had to been called back if Lysias came down and then he wanted to hear something else, but he probably had already heard all that he wanted from them anyway. Yeah.
Okay, so this time you have, the Jews are over here thinking they're kind of sort of in charge of the religion. I mean, they have their little government type thing going on. But then Rome is on top of them.
So you actually have three layers. You have the religious leaders who have some degree of autonomy. Over them is a puppet king, King Herod, that's installed by Rome. And technically he's responsible for Judea and portions of it. And then over him you have the Roman governors that he would have to be subject to. And then up to Caesar. But yeah, their freedom and autonomy and self-governance is all under Rome's permission and just as far as they allow it, which is why Jesus was such a problem and why they feared him. So if he does, it's better for the nation for one man to die because they were afraid of losing their nation, this independence that they had, and their own places, their role of semi-power.
As long as they were quiet and unseen,
Right.
just accepted whatever tribute from them they could get and let them do it all.
Right. The squeaky wheel gets the bop.
Jesus was upsetting that apple.
He sure was. Any other questions? Thoughts?